Hi, this is Steve Stine from GuitarZoom, and I get asked a lot about the concept of being able to speed pick, learning how to pick fast. And not that you want to do it all the time, but it's certainly a technique that can be very useful to your playing. And so what I want to do today is I want to give you some tips on how to be more productive, more efficient with your speed picking. And so I'm going to break down a few different things, and then you and I can build them back up again. So the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about your right hand. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is the guitar pick that you're using. I want you to be very aware of the guitar pick and its ability to enable whatever your outcome is, whatever it is that you're interested in trying to do. The problem is a lot of times is people don't take the guitar pick very serious. When you find really good players, I think they take their guitar picks very serious. I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but I would think so. And what I mean by that is there are really two different things you need to be thinking about with a guitar pick. Number one, you're thinking about the size of the guitar pick relative to your hand and your approach to picking the strings. And the second thing is the thickness of the pick and how it bends or reacts to the string as you pick it. I have very small hands, and so I use very small guitar picks. Now, I used to exclusively use Jazz 3s by Dunlop, which are very, very small picks. And I used those for years. And when I would use them, as soon as the tip of the guitar pick would get worn down, I'd throw it away and get another pick. You know, that's another mistake that people make is if we're actually talking about speed picking here, in my opinion, the sharper the point is, the easier it is to create a nice aggressive pick on the string, but yet, again, we're going to talk about this, but not get stuck on the string. If you've got a rounded edge on the front, like a jazz pick sometimes would be, you're not going to get that percussive kind of speed, that speed sound with a rounded side. So what happens is over a period of time, of course, of using the guitar pick, the tip of the pick gets worn down and then it doesn't do you any good anymore. So what I would recommend to you is that you have a guitar pick that is sharp on the end. And if that starts getting worn down, throw it away. I mean, the most expensive picks for the most part are a couple of dollars. I'm not saying that you can't get into picks that are way more expensive. Of course you can. I just don't really use those guitar picks. I use picks that are relatively easy to replace. But again, picks are holy for some people, so it depends on what you want. I'm just saying, in terms of speed picking, it's nice to have a sharp pointy end on your pick. The size of the pick makes all the difference because when you grab that guitar pick, you have to think about how much pick is actually sticking out the bottom, okay? So in this camera shot, if you can see that, it's kind of hard to see, but I have a tendency of playing with very little pick sticking out the bottom of the guitar pick. So when I go to play, you know, my hand isn't way out here picking like this, you know, again, this is hypothetical, but with a pick that size, right? I've seen these huge triangular picks, man. I don't even know what you would do with those things. But the point is for speed picking, I want to have very little sticking out the end. I want it to be sharp. So when I come across that guitar string and I start picking, you'll notice I kind of grab onto the body of the guitar and sort of on the bottom of the first string here. That's a personal preference. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just kind of let my hand go, and we're going to talk about wrist and all those sorts of things. But let's get past this first step, okay? So as I have this pick, I'm kind of cupping the pick up far enough to where there's just a little bit sticking out the bottom. Okay, and now I come across those strings. Right now I'm using these John Petrucci style jazz picks. They're also made by Dunlop. They're a little bit bigger, which took me a little while to get used to, but I actually really like them better than the Jazz 3s at this point. Who knows? Next week I'll probably go back. You never know. I mean, the point is what's feeling good to you, right? So if you choose a pick and it's really working for you, and then next week you choose something else, so what, right? You only have yourself to explain it to. But anyway, so I like the pick really thick as well, which these Jazz 3s and these Dunlops really are, or these John Petrucci style. They're very thick and they don't move at all. And I prefer that in my playing in general. So when I go to play something quietly, I just hit softer. And when I want something harder and more aggressive, then I can hit more aggressively. If you've ever used like a paper thin guitar pick, the problem with those is they bend. So when you go to pick that string, the pick itself bends and then it pushes through. So again, there's a bit of a delay, and there's this floppiness, this kind of, spaghetti noodly thing happening with the guitar pick. And so it's nice if you're strumming and you're really heavy-handed and you want a little bit lighter sound, but they're not very desirable for speed picking. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to have a super thick pick. You don't. You just have to find what's comfortable. One of my favorite guitar players, his name is Paul Gilbert. Paul Gilbert for years used really thick picks, and then all of a sudden he went back to a kind of a medium style pick, and he loved it. And nobody's going to argue with the way Paul Gilbert plays. It's perfect to me. So it's most comfortable to you. That's what you're looking for. So now we've got this pick. We're going to approach those strings. So now what I want you to start thinking about is the angle at which you're picking the strings. What people learn really early on is if they turn the pick sideways and then they pick the string, it's actually easier to go through the string and make it faster, which is true because there's less friction. The problem with that is that you just get this kind of swishing sound because there's no percussion, right? When the string is sitting here and the pick goes flat on that string, and it hits it like this, it causes it to vibrate. If you're turning the pick sideways, you're just slicing through that string. Sure, it makes you faster, but it doesn't sound very good. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to take this guitar pick, put it on the third string. Now I'm going to turn it sideways, not all the way, but sideways. Now it's easier for me to get through the string, there's no doubt, because my guitar is angled this direction, and my pick is angled this direction. And I'm just kind of going at it, right? What I want you to think about is not only the speed at which you're trying to pick, but the percussive effect that you're going to get when you do pick, because it makes everything much cleaner when you learn how to do it more accurately. So what I want you to think about is, let's go do that again, only this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the pick straight. So the only thing, my pick is absolutely straight. The only thing that's turned is the neck is up a little bit. So it is at an angle a little bit, but I'm not overcompensating by turning the pick as well. My pick is absolutely straight. So when I pick this string, I can grab that string and pick it really aggressively if I want to. You see, so I can get bites on, pinch harmonics, all that kind of stuff. I can get all those sounds by having my pick straighter, okay? Now, as I move into speed picking, I'm not going to change the angle of my pick. And you can see as I'm doing that, again, it might be hard to hear, but I'm getting much more percussion element off of the picking of that string than I would if I was turning the pick, okay? So now it comes to the next part. We've got the right pick. We've got the proper angle that we're trying to pick at. Now we have to start thinking about the speed at which we're picking. Well, let's talk about some obvious things. The wider I pick, the longer it takes me to pick that string, right? If I'm picking from all the way up here and I go through the string and then all the way back up, it's going to take forever to pick that string. So I want to literally pick that string from the top to the bottom as small as humanly possible. So I'm just barely leaving that string, right? As soon as I pick through, I stop and go back up again. I'm not making big wide motions like this, okay? I'm staying really small. The next thing to think about is the way that you're picking. Are you picking from your bicep, from your forearm, from your wrist, or from your fingers? And this all makes a really big difference, okay? Now, the bicep is kind of obvious. Usually a bicep, what I think of as a bicep strum, is these big open kind of chordal things when you play. That kind of thing. Well, we certainly wouldn't want to speed pick like that because there's too much range of motion, right? So now all of a sudden, we start moving more from the elbow, right? So now the elbow is going to do some stuff. So we kind of lock in and we move the elbow back and forth like this, okay? And for some people, that's very, very effective to lock the elbow and then just move. You're just kind of moving back and forth like this, right? You're just kind of playing like that. And again, it's up to you to decide what's best for you. I just want you to be aware of them so you can explore. I tend to find that when I lock the arm here and I move from the elbow, the problem is that it gets very tense and I get tired after a while, right? So this speed picking thing, really ideally, you want it to be relaxed because you want to be able to do it as long as you need to as you're playing, right? So when you're going, whatever it is. whatever it is that you're going to play, you want it to be relatively relaxed so it comes off nice and smooth as you're playing. So the next situation you've got, the next option you've got is to move from the wrist, right? So now what you would do is you'd start moving this direction across that string. And then the last option is to actually move from the fingers like this, which isn't very comfortable for me at all, but I've seen players do it and they're very, very good at it. So for me, my two main options would be to move from the wrist or to move from the elbow. Those are the two. And I kind of go back and forth between the two depending on how fast I'm going. Because again, for me, there's a difference between playing fast and then shredding, so to speak. Shredding is actually easier for most people because once you get the idea of how to move back and forth, I want to show you this. If you can see you can obviously see my hand right there. But if I think of moving as almost like shaking off water like this, so instead of it being like, I'm pounding a nail like this, what I'm actually doing is kind of just shaking off water like this. That's more of the motion that I tend to make when I'm picking. It's kind of back and forth like that, just kind of like this. Okay? Then I can control my range of motion, right? Like this. So instead of doing this, I'm turning this way. Now again, you have to explore these things. So right now, a metronome is not what you need. What you need to do is just sit down and get comfortable with, am I using the right pick, right? Am I coming across at the right angle? And then as I start playing, the goal isn't to try and, over accentuate all of your muscles when you do this. It's actually to go what I call going inward, which is where you start relaxing. So as you do this, and you start trying to achieve faster picking speeds, you're actually trying to learn how to relax from your neck and your shoulder and your bicep and everything. You start relaxing. So even though a lot of times we hear a lot of this in metal, the truth is to be able to do a lot of this for a long period of time, you have got to learn how to relax, not just, like this, because you're gonna blow a blood vessel or something. So you got to relax. So the trick here is as you're doing this, find which range of motion feels most comfortable to you, reassess how you're picking that string, and then as you go into for your attack on that string, again, the pick is relatively straight now, okay? We don't want to make big distances. We want to make smaller distances across that string. And before you ever worry about your left hand, the trick with all of this is becoming intuitive. Okay, and what I mean by that is you have to get to know yourself. If you're stressing your neck, or your back is all stressed, or your arm is all stressed, or you're moving a lot, or whatever it might be, before you can fix anything, you have to be aware of those things and start going, oh yeah, boy, I really am tensing up, or boy, I really am using the wrong pick. I've been using that pick for 30 years, but for this particular thing, it's really not going to work very well. Whatever it might be. So don't start bringing in the left hand to confuse everything even more. Become aware of what you're doing here and how comfortable this is. Okay? So as I keep going, I'm teaching myself to relax. And I'm finding that ideal range of motion. Right there now, I'm using a little bit more of the wrist. Okay? And so at this point, again, metronome is completely unnecessary. I'm just becoming more aware of myself and my ability to be able to do what I'm doing. Bringing my left hand in, as I just said, is just going to make things more confusing because now our brain's got to start thinking about, scales or shapes or whatever it is we're doing. And not only that, but you have to start shifting through strings, which makes things even harder. And we're going to get to that. But right now, you focus on those. So focus on number one, proper pick. Number two, proper holding of the pick and angle, right? Just to make sure you understand that when I'm playing, which I showed you earlier when I was holding the pick, but I'm just using 2 fingers. I don't have all 5 fingers or something on that pick trying to do all this work. I want to relax. These fingers got to stay nice and smooth and relaxed as I'm playing. Okay, I might use them for hybrid picking or for changing my volume or my toggle switch or whatever, but they need to stay relaxed. You don't have to do this and all this kind of craziness. Just stay relaxed as you pick. And think about your range of motion. Think about relaxing as you play. But get percussive with that string. Pick the string. Don't just turn the pick. You might as well be using a nickel or a dime or something to get that kind of effect. And again, we could say, well, there are people that use, change to play. Of course there is. I'm just telling you that when it comes to speed picking, it's not really going to work. I know Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top uses like a peso or something like that, but he's not a fast picker. That isn't his thing. Wonderful guitar player. I love him. But we're talking about speed picking right now.